Hey guys, in this video we're going to be covering the new master compressor on the Digitakt. So Elektron released version 1.08 of the firmware recently, and it includes a new master effect, a compressor. So I'm just going to quickly go over what a compressor is, how it works, and then we're going to do some demos and so you can hear what it sounds like on this unit here. So to access the compressor, you just go to your master section by holding shift and pressing the LFO, which has a little master button here. Previously, you would just have access to the global mixer, but if you keep tapping, you can toggle between the mixer and the compressor. And the compressor has 8 different parameters, which are mapped to these 8 knobs here, as per usual. And you have your standard parameters like threshold, attack, decay, makeup gain, the ratio, a sidechain input, so you can actually pick any of the tracks to be a sidechain. Then you have a sidechain filter, and then a wet-dry mix to engage how much of the compressor you want. So let's just quickly go over the basics of what a compressor is and why you would want to use one. So a compressor you can think of as effectively a volume knob that is controlled by the signal. So you can set certain parameters and tweak it in certain ways, but effectively you can make it so that if the signal gets too loud, it automatically gets lowered, the volume gets lowered. And the way at which the volume gets lowered and what triggers the volume to go up and down is controlled by different parameters. So let's go over them over here on the front panel. So the first one is threshold. So this sets at which level the compressor will start having an effect. So you can set it pretty high so that only parts of your signal that are really loud will get affected. Then you have parameters like attack and release, which are the time. So the attack is the time it takes after the signal passes the threshold, the time it takes for it to actually have an effect, so for the volume to get lowered. So you can slow the attack so that when your signal crosses the threshold, it takes a bit of time before it actually gets attenuated. And the reverse is sort of the opposite. It's the amount of time it takes for the effect to get undone or for the volume to go back to normal. And then you have a knob called makeup gain at the end here. So because the compressor is effectively attenuating signals based on these parameters we talked about, you have the ability to add some makeup gain, which effectively brings the volume back up. And that's how you generally get that loudness effect from a compressor, is that you're effectively kind of reducing the dynamic range of your overall signal because you're attenuating levels that are too high. And then your signal kind of gets overall smaller on average. And then you can add makeup gain to kind of bring everything back up. But because you've sort of flattened out the peaks, you have more headroom to bring the signal back up with the makeup gain. And then on the bottom here, you have a ratio. So the ratio is effectively in decibels, and it determines how much attenuation is effectively going on. So let's say you set your threshold and your signal goes maybe 4 dBs over the threshold. If your ratio is 2 to 1, then it would get compressed down, or the volume would get lowered down to 2 dBs, effectively half of that. And then so the larger the ratio, the more compression there is. And it looks like this goes from 1.5 all the way to 20. So next to that, we have the sidechain input. And the sidechain is effectively the signal that controls the compressor. So that's the signal that the compressor monitors and checks if it crosses the threshold or not. So you can actually have a separate signal that is used to control the compressor from the signal that is being processed. By default, the sidechain is the full mix. So all 8 tracks mixed together are used to control the compressor. But you can actually toggle and pick any of the 8 tracks independently. Next to that, we have a sidechain filter, which has this really neat interface which goes from high pass to low pass, it looks like. This allows you to, like I said, filter the sidechain signal so that you can pick a different range of your signal to act as the control signal for the compressor. And then finally, like we mentioned, there's a wet-dry knob, so you can select how much of the compressor has an effect. Anyways, that's enough blah blah. I know you guys don't like a lot of talking, so let's go right into just doing a quick demo here. So I'm just gonna play this pattern, nothing special. And then we can start engaging the compressor by moving it to full wet. So now we can lower the threshold to see at which point the signal starts to act. And you can see this little VU, or this little meter on the side here, tells you how much compression is happening. So as I lower the threshold, you get more and more compression to the point where almost the whole signal gets ducked. And then as you can see, the volume gets lowered because most of the signal is going over the threshold. So we can add some makeup gain. And we're getting this really interesting distortion, which tends to happen when you have a really slow or really quick attack. So if I lower the attack, we're going to lose some of that distortion and get more of a traditional our ratio is 2 to 1 now, so our signal's getting attenuated in half, basically, once it crosses the threshold. So I can increase that ratio. Let's just go to the extreme. This is 20 to 1. And you get that like really, you're almost kind of a vacuum. You're sucking all the life out of the signal. But maybe that's the kind of sound you want. And then just as an example for the sidechain signal, we can select track 1, which is our kick, and you're going to hear that effect. And you get that standard kind of ducking based on the kick signal. And then we can filter the signal. So you can see that as you high pass the sidechain input, only the high parts like the hi-hats and stuff are contributing to the control signal. Alright, I'm going to stop talking now. I'm just going to fiddle with the knobs and just kind of take the knobs to extreme values so you can see the general range of what you can do. And of course you can pick an extreme value, like get some intense distortion, compression, and then you can lower the wet dry knob so that you can mix the original signal with a bit of the compressed signal. Yeah, I find you really got to keep an eye on, I keep looking at my meter here for my audio interface, because the signal can start clipping really fast, because you can quickly explode it if you're not careful. Yeah, so that's basically it. It's a fairly simple interface. You got your standard controls at the top: threshold, attack, release, makeup, gain, ratio, sidechain input, which is cool. You can pick any of your tracks, and then you have your delay and your dry mix. All right, I'm gonna leave it at that. Just wanted to keep this nice and short and just give you a preview since the thing just came out, so you can see roughly what you can do with it. I tried doing parameter automation with it, but I don't think it works. I tried recording knob changes, but it didn't actually record them. So I don't know that it's possible to automate these parameters with parameter locks, but if there's a way that I'm missing, let me know in the comments. Yeah, so I guess it's a no-brainer. I mean, it's a free upgrade. You might as well upgrade to 1.08. There's a few other changes as well, but the primary thing is the addition of the compressor, which is a nice addition to this little box. Adds kind of more of a punch, and you can beef up your sounds that way. So, yep, I'll leave it at that. Make sure to like and subscribe if you want to see more videos like this, and I'll see you guys in the next one.